enjoy the show. Play on my channel.
I went to see Aquaman. I think Matt.
I think I saw
you
that.
mentioned that. I didn't get to see it yet. I saw the box office numbers.
Not good.
It was 28 million over the holiday week.
Not good. It's not great. You know. I look over, my wife's sleeping. You know.
Oh Jesus. I've seen the memes and stuff to
Wow.
where Amber Heard gets like 11 lines and like 20 minutes total, and that whole debacle I feel took away from it. But ultimately, I feel the steam that the box office didn't get was from the old regime, and it was just put the stuff out there. It does what it does.
Yeah. Patrick Wilson should be Aquaman.
Okay.
Yeah, he's played some really good characters. That Owl Man was amazing.
The Aquaman we grew up with, right? He's the blonde, short-haired guy. He grew the beard when he became a little bit more regal,
Right.
Momoa is silly. He's always doing stupid shit.
That's why I love him for Lobo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect casting for Lobo. And going forward, we do have the James Gunn universe to look forward to. And
so I left the movie for the post credits. Was there any post credit scenes that you were familiar with?
I haven't seen it yet.
Not that I've seen.
Yeah, I got the hell out of there because I wanted to hang out with you guys.
I appreciate that we're back.
And we thank you for that.
Let's see.
Glad we could save you.
There was a post end credits scene in.
You looked.
Yeah, I just looked that up. It's it's very readily available. I will put that ago, but it's like 4 days ago. So
I
don't think the baby much.
Yeah, he's got a baby in this one. I'm like, it took Aquaman how many years? Did he even have a baby in the comics ever? I don't even know.
Not that I remember, but that doesn't square off anything. Yes. That was a long time ago.
Yes,
there was a story.
They did a DC adaptation on that because it was in, I want to say, Justice League. It was when they were meeting Aquaman in the animated Justice League show back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
I just remember the one that was in the comic book a long time ago. I'm talking 70s.
Well, that's where they pull from. Obviously, DC Animated has always done amazing work.
It's beautiful.
Anything they've done has really been awesome because they do have that pull from the comics, which ties right into the legend we have sitting right above us, gang. Welcome, Wall Jangers, to Tales of the Hunted. Of course, I'm talking about the great and powerful Frank Percy. Actually, I'm not this week. I'm talking about an actual comic book legend on the Perjangers and Wall Hangers network, on Tales of the Hunted, the great and powerful Mark McKenna.
Yeah.
And unlike Frank, you can't deny it. Like there was like maybe one or two links when I typed in Frank's name. Like, yeah, I did have to put Mark McKenna, comic book artist, but it was like 75 pages right away. I don't have 75 pages. I barely got a page of something. Like, podcast guy, I don't know. But
yeah, they add up. I sat around one boring afternoon and literally pulled out one of each of my comics and started counting pages.
Ouch.
It was a slow day, yeah. So,
did you want to feel old? Because I mean, dude, I do my research here at least a little bit, and the first thing that I see popped up is a comic book called The Nam. I think we all know the Nam that it's talking about here and referring to because it came out November 1st, 1992, October 1st, 1992, and you were linked with covers for this Marvel comic back then.
1992. What was the book?
Nam.
Oh, the Nam. I did about 5 or 6 covers on the Nam.
Yeah.
But you want to go back a ways. 1984 is when John Romita first called me up and offered me a job at Marvel. And I said, yeah, it was. And I said, I'm I lived in Long Island at the time, and my commuting fee from Long Island to New York City every day would have been equal to the $4.50 hour. Frank, you probably made about 5 and change when you
five and change. Yeah, yeah.
But I said no to John twice, and then the third time he said, you know, you gotta. He didn't say shit or get off the pot, but that's basically what he said. And I said to him, well, you have to understand, I can't afford this commute and every day. And he said, what if I was into assisting work? And I said, well, then I would say yes. And then, you know, that started the whole ball rolling.
Nice. Wow.
Because I did notice as I'm going through here, obviously a lot of big names, especially now with the Into the Spider-Verse movie coming out. I've noticed one of the first ones that you're linked to as inker itself is the 2099 Unlimited with Unlimited Hulk, I guess you could call it.
Hulk, yeah. J.J. Birch, who I think was another guy and with a Polish last name, but I feel like he screwed up enough deadlines where he changed his name so he could kind of start fresh. And I don't know how much. You ever hear the name J.J. Birch before?
I can't tell you I have. Frank?
Right.
Sounds somewhat, vaguely out of the distance echo in my head.
Yeah, I don't think he did a lot, but it was at Hulk 2099. I actually dipped my toes in a couple of 2099 books. The Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah.
I did with Kelly Jones. And then I did 2 issues over Ron Lim 2099. But that's it, you know.
I mean, Spider-Man in and of itself, obviously he's really big. For me, it was the bigs when I was growing up was Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, you know, all the populars that you saw in the Justice League. But the one that I really did, what I connected when I started actually reading comics, because back then I just looked at the artwork. I was looking at your stuff. I was looking at your artwork first. And then I went back to circle around to the reading part. And
yeah, I think I'm the same way with comics. It's if the art, I won't read it. I won't pick it up.
Right. Yeah, it's a visual medium. It's not a novel, you know.
Exactly. But the one that comic line that I really did circle back to was started off with The Walking Dead and, you know, other titles like that in the not so popular spotlight. But when I went back to the spotlight, the first one that I really hooked onto was Batman. When I was young, I was always one of 6 Matts on a soccer team. And you say Matt and everybody's head snaps. So my dad told my soccer coaches long ago that, hey, if you want his attention, just call him Matt Man. He'll turn his head every single time. So when I started podcasting, the old podcast partner said, you know, I'm going to do some nicknames on here. What's your nickname? What is a nickname people call you? And for my entire life, I have been called Matt Man. So
nice.
That's what I go on. That's the mantle I don. And when I got into the Batman comics, especially when you look at what I've found is a lot of comic book artists and fans who were fans from like older days of like gold, silver, all the, you know, traditional stuff. They don't really follow the normal modern comic lines, not normal, but modern up-to-date DC Marvel storylines. But one of the newer comics that I loved was the Court of Owls. I bought the compendium, Doomsday Clock. I bought the omnibus. You know, it's Batman was the way to enter my veins for DC. It was like, well, you got Batman. All right, we'll just go through the Batman, all of them. And I see a bunch of Batman here, which really just, I'm like, that's where I saw your name. There.
Yeah, so I was at Marvel doing Exiles with McKenna and can't remember who was writing it at the time.
Yeah.
Guy that was on that MTV show, I can't think of his name. Real Life or something.
Oh, okay. Yes. Judd something.
That's it. Yeah, that guy.
Judd. I forget Winnick. That's right.
Yeah.
Judd Winnick. Yes.
And after about 12 issues of Exiles, Mick Ray, who became a pretty solid name himself in comics. He was my assistant since 1992. We did a book I did a book called The Griffin at DC. It was a 6-issue, 48-page square-bound miniseries, and Mick was my assistant for a few years. And why did I bring that up? I already forgot my way there.
That happens to me all the time.
We were talking about Judd Winnick, and you're talking about the Exiles. Yeah.
Stay on me because I'm 66 now.
Don't worry, I'm chasing right behind you, dude. Don't worry about me.
I'm the young gun in the room. I'm just here to. Yeah. I'll watch you both.
Thanks.
So I got it. So Mick was inked an issue of Detective over. It was Greg Rucka was writing it. It was Steve Lieber was drawing it. And Steve had a kind of a loose pencil style, and Mick wasn't there yet. He didn't quite know what to do with it. So he starts splattering ink all over stuff they didn't really know,
That was a thing.
He says, like, to me, he goes, listen, you want to do this book? He goes, I'm a wreck trying to do this and do it justice. So I took on Detective, 769 to 775. I did 6 issues. So I went from, doing Exiles at Marvel, jumped over to D, then I hired Jim Lee to do Batman. He just said, have a good life. You're on your own. So it was a weird time for me because it was around 2002. My father passed away that year. We went from a house in Bridgewater, New Jersey, to a house in upstate New York. I left my wife. I was doing a show in Chicago, the Comic-Con in Chicago. I left my wife with a 55-foot truck and a little pug, our little dog, and said, I got to go away this week. Then I lose Batman. I lose Detective. I'm like, this is the crazy time of my life. My father passed away. I moved into a new house, and I lost my job. And I remember talking to another artist who goes, my sister is inconsolable when she misplaces her cell phone, and you had 3 of the biggest things happen to you in 1 week. You somehow survived,
Right.
Yeah, you did good.
Wow. Yeah.
But that's the background with so I was at DC for 4 years in 87, 88, 89, and 1991. Ralph Macchio. I might have told you this, Frank, when I saw you in down in Ocean City. But Ralph Macchio called me up and offered me range. So I was under contract. I was under continuity contract for years at DC.
Okay.
And I had medical benefits back then. It was a bonus, page rate. Everything was beautiful. But I always wanted to be a Marvel guy. So when I got a call to do Doctor Strange, even though I wasn't a big Doctor Strange guy, they flattered me. I was doing Doom Patrol at DC. They wanted to bring some of that Doom Patrol energy over to, the Master of Mystic. So they brought me. And I quit my contract. And, Marvel never offered contract. I don't know if you ever did, Frank, get a contract, did you? No.
That's a no.
Yeah. That's a negative. Yeah, that's a negative on that bypass Ghost Rider. That pattern is full. Yeah, no, they never did. I don't. Before we go crazy, we're going too far over. Who was the artist that you worked over on the Hulk 2099? Was that the same one that Chris Ivey was working over? Because that initial start that they did was really nice. A little crazy as it went into storytelling, but just beautiful.
I see
to me as an artist.
I see artist David Klein and Matt Booker.
No, the one I did was the quarterly, the Hulk.
Oh, okay, you did a quarterly. Okay, I thought you continued the series.
No, I only did the one thing. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah,
so I really enjoyed that version. It was very interesting.
Yeah,
a little on the crazy side, but so what, but I enjoyed that actually.
Yeah. It was when the stuff I was doing, it's when the West Coast style started to become a thing, and they were doing a lot of those Rob Liefeld zigzaggy lines that meant nothing,
right. Yeah.
But a lot of took heart and started to do that thing. There was a point in my career where I decided, do I want to do this? or do I want to stick to my guns? And, John Romita Sr. was the boss, right? So
Right.
you're watching these brush guys, Joe Sinnott, I was working with Al Milgram, Vinnie Coletta, Brett Breeding, all these guys I worked with, and I all watched what they did. And none of them were doing that West Coast.
None of them. They stayed consistent to that craft of not the pop version of it, what was going on, but it was that's what made it kind of beautiful. But unfortunately, it like hair bands in the 90s, they kind of went out a little bit. But I always, for whatever,
It was about the music, Frank. The music, not the hair.
It was about the gel that they used. But I really enjoyed those guys. Their work. It's just still beautiful as it is.
You grew up with them, right?
Well, no, them I did. Yes. Looking at Bob Hall and that West Coast Avengers miniseries with Bob Hall and Brett Breeding. To me, that was just like, holy moly, was that beautiful. The Savage Sword of Conan, all that John Buscema, Ernie Chan, and then when Rudy Nebres got his hands on that, I mean, it's just like, holy cow. I was in high school when that was going on, and I asked my art teacher, how do you do this? What is this? Why do they make it look like that? How do you do that? Well, you got word salad and nothing. So I walked out of high school with like nothing. So
I still
wanted to do it.
Where is the start? Where's your origin? I was about to say. Where is that?
So I was a comic reader. And then when I met the guidance counselor in high school, he's like, "What are you gonna, what do you want to do?" And I was like, "I don't know. I make Super 8 movies, and I doodle comic stuff, And he said, "Well, we could talk about going to the, do the film department in the School of Visual Arts." So I said, "Yeah, I was very passionate about making movies. I made these Super 8 movies where actually I would have replica 44 Magnums on set, and I'd have to call the local police department, let them know."
Way back then? Back then? Come on. I had real, almost cap gun revolvers, and I looked like the goddamn fucking Lone Ranger, okay? And no one said shit, and that was in Texas, They said nothing. I was right in front. Pow, pow, pow. Nothing. So,
Nice Texas, though, no?
Yeah, I lived there as a kid, way back when, in that time called the 70s. Yeah.
And I'm still learning stuff about Frank.
Yeah, there you go. So
peel back that onion.
I met the film chairman at Visual Arts, and the guy says to me, "The chances of you getting a job in film are astronomical, like 10,000 to 1." And he says, "How do you feel about that?" I go, "I'm out." I was like, he wanted me to say, "I could do this. I got the back."
Yeah.
He
was letting you know at the front, like, you have no chance. Like, you know what?
Now that was
You're
snatch
right.
the pebble from my hand type of thing. You could, you just weren't ready yet. So
Nah.
that's all it was. Don't be fooled.
That famous Jim Carrey thing, your chance 10,000 to 1. You're saying I have a chance.
Exactly.
So I went into animation. I became an animation major. I was doing comic books with the film. So that was before computers. It was 1980 about, and 770 drawings for 1 minute of hand-drawn animation. My thesis was going to be about a minute and a half, and somewhere around 220 drawings. I didn't want to do it anymore, So I met the
reality came in,
Yeah,
that puts everybody off. Like, I remember as a kid, you watch those Disney shows that they have, and this is animation. The guy's over the light table, and he's literally drawing the same thing, just a little bit off.
Yeah.
And then a little bit off. And I already saw the gun going in my mouth, and I was like, that's not going to happen. I can't.
I know.
God bless the people who can, because I love Japanese animation. And while, like you're saying, there is that digital aspect to it, a lot of really good anime is still hand-drawn. And like the stuff with Studio Ghibli and Ghibli? I think it's Ghibli. It's
close
enough.
enough.
Like that. But because they use like watercolors, and there's a lot of really interesting artwork that you can get off of that, to where I think a lot of nerds are going anime. They're going, they're going indie as well, which is one thing that we love to highlight on here. But as far as, I mean, it's just a vast scope of work that you've done. Is there one particular, even I would say just comic line, or one particular company that you preferred working on throughout the years?
I can flat out tell you, DC treated the freelancers Marvel ever did. They just did. I think when I was on contract, and maybe when I wasn't, my first book was Dr. Fata in 1987. So I got a contract the next day. So I can't say that DC would have been as kind to the freelancers that didn't have contracts, but I have to tell you, every year at Christmas time, we got a Christmas gift. We got a Christmas card. And every time we got comps, we get a box in the mail of 20 to 25 comps of everything we did. At Marvel, you got no card, you got no Christmas gift, and you were lucky if you get a little manila.
A little bonus.
Free copy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's funny. Those gifts that you used to get, I worked at a art supply stationery store in Midtown Manhattan, and they supplied that, I think it's a Batman clock that DC that you might have gotten.
Yeah, I didn't get that one. I get the DC Bullet clock.
Something like that. But I had met Michael Baer, and I'd met Art Nichols, who I became his assistant.
Right.
And the lady who owned the store, she says, that's inside information. You can't tell them that. So I saw it before you guys got it. That's so funny. That's so funny you mentioned that. Yeah.
That's great.
So all that stuff that we got, I knew about it, but I couldn't tell them that.
Wow.
I did anyway because, I'm a shit,
That happens in
I told
job.
Art Nichols, yeah, you're going to get a clock, motherfucker.
That's how we find out about rumors and what's happening in, these movies and Marvel, because nobody keeps their mouth shut.
Yeah. No. Bunch of kids,
Yeah.
Dude, you won't believe what I did at work today.
Yeah.
Case in point right there for the nerds.
Yeah.
I like to for some reason I'm surprised that DC would be so awesome, but
like the Hertz rent a car. We're number 2, but we try harder, right, or something like that. They're always that way. I'll tell you another thing. When they used to also we would get a monthly newsletter with all the comings and goings of everything that happened in DC, which was very informative.
Wow.
So he actually, excuse me, putting that thing together every month. And at one point, Dick Giordano, who was editor-in-chief at the time, was the royalty scheme was 1.5% to the writer, 1%. I think 1.5% to the writer and 1.5% to the penciler, and 0.6% to the inker.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They invited artists to email. I don't know if email was a thing back then, but write letters and talk about this. And I wrote a letter saying that we're the third most important guy in the book at the time. Maybe colorist now, I don't know, but and he invites me into the office. Dick Giordano does, and he says, I want to tell you, we're going to increase the royalty from 0.6 to 1%. And he goes, it was letters like yours that had an input on how we did. And I remember he also said Terry Austin too. So I don't know, a lot of people know that I was batting for the rest of the inking world, but I was, and it worked out pretty cool,
That's great.
Breaking news
Thank you.
right here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, because there was that line in Clerks that kind of shit on anchors. And I think a lot of people just keep that in their head as like, well, this is my comic fact. And already, if people have even watched one of the Tales of the Hunted episodes, you will know. I was at the Blue Hen Comic-Con and this year, which was amazing. It was an abandoned Sears, and they filled it.
Oh, Jesus.
I got lost so many times. Like, between that one and Ocean City, it was amazing of how little my actual bearings for navigation are. I definitely got them from my mother. So thanks, Mom. So we're at the con, and with Ocean City, fuck, that goddamn thought gremlin came in. Hang on, let me see if I can find it again. You transferred the thought gremlin to me. I don't know.
Okay.
Ocean City. What the hell was I talking about?
You were there, Ocean City, sitting and waiting at that when the going around.
Yeah, I had a point to that. God, it was going to be so moving and lifting, and
All right.
it was going to be it was practically a Grammy speech, is what it was.
We'll come back to it.
We'll circle back around to that. Yeah,
We'll circle back around.
that thought gremlin.
There's always blood in the water.
Yeah.
You were talking about the other con that you were part of, that you went to.
Blue Hen.
In Ocean City. The other con you was something to do with
Ocean City. Yeah.
Blue.
He was there sitting with me at my table.
Yeah, the Blue Hen Comic-Con. What was the point?
Yeah, that's what it was about.
Comic-Con. Oh my God, it was a great con. What happened?
We'll come back.
Yeah, we'll circle back around to that. Because the cons have started to just kind of blend in, because you start to meet a lot of amazing people, and like through that, I've been podcasting for this long, but it's just, I got my first thank you at the Ocean City Comic-Con. Like, it was like a participation trophy, but it's still like, it stabbed me like right in the feels, of just, I just showed up and I have like these people like, thank you for coming to the beach in the winter. It's just, I can't imagine the kind of thank yous that you get, because I stifle them off myself, because just, I've literally been flipping through your comics for inspirations on writing the annual for Frank's comic. And it's just, I'm like in the beginning stages of my journey, and just being able to talk to you, for one, is very inspirational to me, because I find a lot of creative people think kind of like I do. And it's very inspiring for a person who's just starting out to be able to see a podcast like this, because podcasting is great for long format. As shitty as my memory is, it's really great for it, because it gives people a chance to actually see the person that they've been a fan of, not just their art, and actually get a slice into their life and see, and in a lot of cases for comic books, and, I'm not going to go in the entertainment industry. That's that's like the dark alley you don't go down, but the rest of it's just nice and like Disneyland, and everybody's great and happy and fun and very helpful, I've found overall.
No, you're right. I mean, Frank knows this. As freelancers, you're hiding behind a table and a chair.
No one sees you. No one sees you. Yeah.
And you have when you do the Comic Cons,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them don't even know who you are. I mean, like, I had, for the longest time, I mean, I'd say before the 90s, you wouldn't even know what some of these artists, I knew what Neil Adams looked like only because there were so many photos of him, like actual photos in some of these comic magazines, interview magazines, and a few others, and Jack Kirby. Mm-hmm. I only figured out who Joe Rubenstein was because Kyle Baker made a caricature of Joe in the back of one of the Marvel Ultimate Hand Guide, the guide to everybody. What was that?
Marvel Universe.
Yeah, the full guide. In the back they had, because he inked all the characters on the first series. Yeah. And then in the back they had Jim Shooter, like a character somebody did of Jim Shooter, and a few others, and they did one of Joe Rubenstein. It was by Kyle Baker, and it was strange. What I kind of saw when I first met him to what the character was, so I guess there's a little liberty, but that's the only way I knew. I mean, I didn't know who Art Nichols was, but till I met him, and Michael Baer, didn't know, had no idea. Long-haired guy, mustache, little goatee, never would have passed him in New York City in the Village without even taking a second look. Right. You never know.
Well, as a fan, that's what I love about the cons, is I never would have thought in a million years that I would have met you and then have you on my podcast. It's one of those things to where now in the digital age, there's a lot more of immediate grip to fans and what they're interested in and the people that make it. And I feel with this digital age, there's a lot more things that can happen with just inspiring the next generation of people who are going to be these influential people. Like, you know, not me, but Frank. I always like to point Frank out because he doesn't think it's going to happen, but his comic is going to go up.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Matt, so you have a history of writing, or Frank just threw you a line and you write?
So essentially, I would, in high school, I could just pump out a paper at the last minute and I'd get a passing grade. When I would actually apply myself, I'd get an A. And I just thought that's how I got through. It wasn't until I was already podcasting and I had met my friend Joe Palladino through podcasting, and he wanted to create an animated web anthology online, and he was going to fund it. And he was like, hey, a little bit of money from you, a little bit of money from me. We'll make this happen. We were able to put out 2 episodes. It's called Tales from the Morgue, Unfortunate Deaths in Unfortunate Ways. I was able to storyboard and help produce the first one. And the second one, he said, look, you're going to write it. And I got writer and director credits on that. And, you know, it was awesome being able to conceptualize something in my mind, put it on the paper. And then I cried the first time I heard Stefan Johnson say the words that I wrote down, because I couldn't connect the two thoughts to where, when I was doing the podcast with Perjangers and Wall Hangers here, and about little over 3 years ago, I met Frank Percy at the Game and DVD Exchange. Our friend Mark Gervais introduced us. And a little bit later on, Frank wanted me to help him with his Kickstarter, because we do production work, obviously. It's not just a pretty face. And I was talking to him with that, and then I said, hey, man, I want to get you, and I still want to get him to commission him to do a shirt idea, a logo for the company that I could sell at the cons. And in that meeting, he was talking to Mark about a character, Steel Patriot, that's coming out for Caribe the Hunted. And he was talking about these characters, the Tishan Queest. I got to get this side story written. And, you know, it's a lot like Double Dutch. I was just like, okay, where's my moment? Where's my? And then I hopped in, and I don't know what I said.
Yeah.
Frank, I just remember Frank like, Matt, are you telling me you're a writer? And I was just like, yeah. And I was able to, much through, you know, annoying the crap out of Frank, I was able to pump out the 12 pages to the point to where I'm happy with. And I caught the bug now, especially after talking to Aleem Legit of Sweet Pea. And the Diary of Sweet Pea, which got funded on Kickstarter, and then Michael Florio of Wild Oni, he just got his funded on Kickstarter, and then talking to Frank, and I'm like, well, I've had an idea, I gotta keep going. So now I do have a bit of the writing bug in now, and I have a bunch of great ideas that I'm putting out on paper, and I'm gonna try to conceptualize, because, I mean, you know, I wouldn't have thought 10 years ago that I would have been able to have actors, directors, you know, authors, producers, comic creators, all on my podcast, something that I literally do in my brother's house. He's sitting over there playing video games as we speak. My podcast partner is out and has partnerships with 3 professional wrestling leagues doing their videography and editing now. So I can't just say that, oh, well, you know, that'd be nice to do. I kind of got to do it now. That's the way I feel. Like, once you get that creative bug and you get bitten by that, I don't really feel like you can really turn away from that.
No, I just did I just kickstarted this connected anthology, the Tomb of Balberth. I did one.
I saw that. Yes.
So the new one, the reason I bring it up is because I used 4 writers that have no history writing comics, and one of them is my son. You know,
that's awesome.
And you know, not to be a bias, but you know, his is the funniest story in the damn thing. You know, but if I'm going to do a third one, and then I'm going to collect all 3 of them in a big square book, but I'll keep it in mind. So when you out, maybe you could wanted to orient.
Breathe, Matt. Breathe, Matt. Breathe,
Yeah.
breathe.
My God, abso-fucking-lutely, man. Holy shit.
Breathe.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, yeah.
I'd be honored.
We'll connect when the new book comes out. I'll send you a copy. You can see what's going on.
100%.
We'll work on the thing.
You believe in
It's
shit,
probably-
wall jangers? I'm just
Story.
doing like a Deadpool aside to break the fourth wall, but I was not
Little steps,
expecting this.
little steps. There you go. Little steps. There you go.
This is so awesome, man.
No, it's probably 2 years from now. So hopefully we'll do it though.
Oh, I'll step my game up by then. Yeah, I'm totally confident now. I'm 100% confident now. Like,
there you go.
that's a problem for future Matt to worry about. But that's awesome, man. I mean, it's that kind of, chance that a person takes. Like, what was the infamous one? Denzel Washington and Chadwick Boseman. He actually funded his college to go for acting. And later on, we got the Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, because of Denzel Washington.
Did not know.
And it's that kind of pay it forward. Frank got me into this. You're getting me deeper into it. Like, I can't say no.
Well, yeah. I hope I didn't tell you too much too soon.
Nah, man, because
We'll bring him down. Don't worry. We'll bring him down. We'll always keep him grounded,
Oh, God, dude. Look, grounding is no problem. Like, I got my brother and my mom for that. Like, all I got to do, I could just, like, case in point. When I was in about 5th grade, my dad took us down to Las Vegas. And we left the day before the Tyson Holyfield fight, and we stayed at the MGM Grand. So I'll never forget it. We just got done checking out. We're turning around to walk out, and it's me, my mom, and my brother. And then I see this, guys, he looks like a giant, but I'm in like 5th grade. Everybody's tall. But he has really spiky hair. And then there's other 2 real big guys next to him. I'm in 5th grade. I don't know any better. I walk in between big bodyguard number 1 and obviously Mr. Don King, body checking him as I go through because I'm an ignorant little kid. I don't know any better. I turn back and I notice the hair and I go, I just bumped into Don King. My brother's like, oh, cool. My mom's like, who?
Yeah.
All right. That kind of nobody knowing, like being able to, like, especially podcasting, I find that's the best way to be humble because you could have the best podcast like tonight. And then I'll go into work tomorrow and I'll get, oh, that's awesome. Good for you. Like, oh, can you pat me on the head when you say it? That's really awesome. But that kind of humbling, it keeps my ego level because if I listen to everybody who's like, dude, I love your podcast, you're awesome, I would be such a prick.
Yeah, I feel like you're a well-molded guy at this point in your life. You're not going to become an asshole.
Well, and I said that, I've told the podcast before, but when I was in 8th grade, my brother and I we got on the national radio. We got on to WMMR 93.3, and it was in the afternoons. We had a bit that we were 2 stoner brothers, and we would call in and do bit comedy for years. And throughout the years, one of our bits they put it out for the National Radio Awards. So we got nominated for National Radio Awards. And this is like 8th grade. I'm coming in with CDs like, hey, guys. I've seen kids break the CDs right in front of me and shit. So, getting exposed to like that 90s, like there wasn't all this hugging and caring. A lot of people didn't care. And they just told you to your face like that. Oh, we're the last generation who has real severe PTSD from our childhood. If there's that kind of thing, but also you gotta be able to grow. I've always tried to learn, especially linking it back to podcasting, being able to, like, nobody's going to tell me how to fix this mic if it doesn't work. I got to be able to look at a situation from an external viewpoint and be able to fix it. You know, I'm a mechanic on my day trade. So, you know, I was been a mechanic. I'm actually in the auto body industry now. So
Wow.
I've worked with cars, been working with cars my entire adult life. And it's that kind of, you're never done learning. And there's always somebody who thinks they know more than you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the auto industry keeps you in check too. They keep you in check and point a gun at your face. But, you know, there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mark, before you go, who were your earlier influences in your work? I know you work really closely with Ramita, and I kind of found out through a little bit of looking that he was influenced by Milton Caniff.
Right.
I had to actually look up a lot of Milton Caniff's books, and then had to really see, you know, the real, you know, genius behind, you know. To me, I always thought that heavy type of inking was a bit much, but he really pulled off a sense of great composition in black and white without a bunch of very fine rendering. So, what was yours?
My
Influences. Influence that early, mid, someplace around the, you know.
tell you, as much as Kirby was, you know, the god of comics back then, I was not a Kirby guy. You know, I was, the John Buscema guy, and then I had to try to ink a page over him, and his stuff was very loose. It was more layouty than actually breakdowny.
Yeah.
But Brian Boland on Dread was unbelievable to me. I used to watch Ordway and Mike Macklin on, I don't know what, Ordway was great to me. Also, Will Eisner was one of my teachers at Visual Arts.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Spirit guy, yeah. And
that's pedigree. Wow.
yeah, and one of my big regrets is that I never got him to do a piece for me. But he did write in The Contract with God was one of his graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote to Mark, one of my more serious students, and then he signed it. And then cut to San Diego Comic-Con about, I don't know, 7 years later, and I'm in the business now. And he was a keynote speaker, and after he was done, he walked off stage, and I said, you know, Will, it's Mark McKenna, and you know, I was on a contract at DC, and I'm doing it because I'm so happy for you. You know, it makes him look good too. You know that.
One of his
his guys made out okay. Of all the guys that were in his classes, it was a lot of guys didn't do anything with it. You know, if you went to art school, you always thought, oh, this is easy. I'm going to become an artist, you know. And then after 2 years, they're all dropping out. It's serious business.
Right.
And they said they had an 87% job, setting up job placement at Visual Arts. I said, yeah, 87%, because by the third year, nobody there, you know.
Yeah.
That's what we call a safe bet.
Yeah.
90% of the guys there or people are there are to keep the lights on. The other 2% go out to work.
Yeah.
There's your 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, you know. But anybody particular outside of because Bolin, I mean, Bolin was almost hard to like follow behind. I mean, that was like trying to follow, you know, behind Sienkiewicz. You know, it's like, holy cow. I mean, they're two different, they're two opposites, but you know, it was kind of hard.
My first inking sample was over Don Heck. Don Heck, when I was working, I was selling art supplies out of Visual Arts. So.
Oh, really? Okay, you're downstairs. Okay.
Sorry, say it again.
You were downstairs in the store?
No, I was actually in Long Island, where, you know, trying not.
Oh, really?
I was not going to make that commute because I wasn't getting. I was working in Port Jeff, Long Island, Port Jefferson, selling art supplies for about 2 years, and then I get the call from John Romita, an opportunity for me to work, and I'm like, this ain't John Romita. Who is this? Is this my friend? Because, I mean, John Romita called me up and offered me. That's just
right.
Yeah.
Right.
But my first sample, Don Heck used to come into the art store, and one day he comes in and he's looking for the 22 by 28 sheets of 2 or 3 ply Strathmore.
Mm-hmm.
And he bought 1 or 2 sheets. He goes home. He comes back an hour later. He goes, "You got any more of that, kid?" I go, "Yeah, I got a whole sleeve of them, you know." He goes, "Give me all of them." He goes, "You know," went home and tested it, made sure
Mm-hmm.
it made and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "What do you do with this?" He goes, "I'm a comic book artist. You might have heard of me." I said, "Who are you?" And I'm below the flat file, you know,
Okay.
pull paper. And he goes, "You
Right.
might have heard of Don Heck." I go, "Oh," all of a sudden my head pops up. I go, "You're Don Heck?" Like,
Wow. Nice. Nice.
man, I know. All right, the guy was all excited.
Yeah. Wow.
And, you know, invited me to his house. I got to be his, friends with him. And
Wow.
some first samples was inking I want to say it was a Justice League page,
Mm-hmm.
Red Tornado, and I was actually ellipsing the little tornado things.
Right.
I remember when I was dropping off samples at Marvel, I would Elliot Brown, who was editing
Yes.
Joe books at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He came up and say, "Oh, we have a program here." He goes, "Maybe you'd be interested in it. You know, it pay. You know, he didn't tell me it paid $4.50 an hour at the time.
Right.
But yeah, definitely reach out. And then, John Romita calls me a week opportunity, and I was like, poured it. And then, a little over a year later, by April 1985 is when I took the job.
Okay.
And went on from there. But yeah, the art supply store, Don Heck, John Buscema came in one time.
Really? So everyone who was out long. Well, I know John Romita lived out in Long Island.
Yes.
I did know I offered because I had done backgrounds and all kinds of stuff for other artists. And, he was just, "No, it's a really far distance, kid." It's all right. It's okay. But I didn't get that chance. But man, someone told me artists hang out at 2 places: the bars and art supply store. Figure out which one you work with, and that's how you meet them. And it's true. I mean, I didn't know which bar. I mean, I'm in New York City. There are bars from Washington Heights all the way down to the ferry. So like, which one? But an art supply store,
Yeah.
they'll come to you.
You know what? In my research, I've always heard like Long Island, Manhattan, and everybody bitching about the commute between the two. I looked at that shit on Google Maps, man. I wouldn't want to make that commute either. That looks horrible. I had to drive into Center City, Philly for a one-day job, and I knew I was never going back there again. I was no, far away from the city. Drive away from the city. That's not the commuting thing.
At Marvel, I moved to Staten Island with my sister, and taking the Staten Island ferry down to downtown New York, and then hopping on the F train, and that's how I started Marvel.
Right.
And I ended up Tom Morgan, who is the assistant art director for John Romita.
Okay.
Looking for a roommate in Astoria, Queens.
Oh wow. Okay.
He said, I'll share you. Yeah, I'll pay half. And we took the N train every morning. That's when I knew I was going to do this, because we would work 9 to 5. We would grab dinner at a local deli or whatever, go back to the offices, eat our dinner while we were doing our assisting work or whatever support job we got. And then we get back on the F train at the security guard, and the guy sweeping the floors would go, "Hey, time to go home now," And we'd leave and then get on the N train, get some more food in Astoria, go back and work 2 or 3 in the morning,
Yeah.
Get up again. That for a year and a half at Marvel, because at that point, when you're in the trenches, you're going to make. You don't. You're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Well,
I went to high school. I went to high school in Long Island City High School, right off from there, and all my friends I used to hang out in Astoria. That's amazing. Wow. That's what stop?
Was there an 80 something street?
No, it's mostly lower. Wait a minute. Yeah. 30th?
I don't know. It wasn't that big a deal. It was
Okay. Well, either way, wow, that's funny because I hung out around there and they lived over there and I hung out over there. So
yeah.
wow. Yeah, I remember doing a lot of late nights with Art Nichols, getting 18 pages done, overnight. I mean, it was brutal.
Big crazy.
But needs to be done.
I just hear you New York people locating each other by numbers. Well, around the 80? Like, no. I want to say like 30? 30? No, like, I have no idea what that grid system you guys are working on. I just know that's a New York thing.
Yeah,
like, my grandmother would have understood it because she was from Brooklyn, but that's it. That's it. That dried up for me there. I've been to New York.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, that's it?
That's it. No, I went to Bubba Gum Shrimp. Great place. Not to give them a free, promo, but
okay. Promo, there you go.
They're still there. I mean,
yeah,
it's got to be good food.
You seen just traveling, just commuting. Well, Art had a place on 23rd Street, and then later on he had a place in, I think the 90s. He moved from there, and then he had a place down in the Village. But man, it was just like finishing pages there, erasing. Doing panel, the line work, filling in blacks, all that stuff. And that was just like, then, go run in and drop it off, and, try not to fuck that up, too much, I go, well, I can manage that, so
yeah,
I did that. I learned so much about the New York City subway system. I learned so much about art that way, I really did. So it was a lot, picking up junk food at the deli. I hear you. I know I know what it is, man. I know that feeling when you're starting out.
I've also ridden in a New York City cab to pop
okay, there you
in
go.
my cab. And that was an experience I think everybody needs to check that New York City cab. Not an Uber. Grab a cab. This motherfucker, he popped out the paper at every light. I mean, sidewalks. Was that a place where a car could park? I don't know. This guy was going there. And you know what? I totally get it after driving the Blue Route a couple times. I understand.
Yeah.
But that is definitely one thing I will say. New York City is a hell of a town. And I appreciate
the Bronx is up and the battery's down, Yeah.
So what character, is there a character that you haven't done in the bigs that you're dying to do? Or is it more, let me go into the indie market? Because I feel obviously a lot of people are diving into indie because it's just the availability of it overall it's right there. Comixology. I went right there first as a digital app because, hey, I got DC, I got Marvel, and I got indie right there. Yeah. And then you see indie comics popping up there. You can buy them. You can read them. It's at the fingertips. Is there something like a Catholic priest you haven't touched yet? That was a planned joke. Yeah,
very nice. Even though I was a DC guy, I liked the Deadman and the Spectre and Creeper when Ditko did the Creeper. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And those characters I really, really wanted to work on. I just didn't connect with them. At Marvel, I was a big Silver Surfer guy, Adam Warlock. I got to work on 2 annuals with the Surfer and a standalone issue with him, which was nice. I think it was with even Bob Hall, maybe. I think he might.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I like the obscure guys. I like the Black Bolt, all those cool, quirky dudes. Never a Superman guy. Never dug him.
I get it.
And enough, in my studio, I have a Legends of the DCU number 18 splash page with a full Superman that I did over Pablo Raimondi back in, I don't know what year it was. And how many guys can you say, got to do Superman splash pages in their life,
Yeah.
Not a lot. Not a lot in my friend circle, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It's one of my hanging on the wall, which is
nice.
good.
Well, being
Yeah.
able to do DC, and that was the big for me because I connected to DC long before Marvel. I was very much on the Marvel train after Iron Man and rediscovering things. For me, DC was that home. One of my favorite, and still is my favorite, because I want them to do him justice and get him off the bench already in the live action verse, which I know is coming. I know, I'll calm down. But Green Lantern is my guy. My first comic I went to a comic book shop and bought with my money was Green Lantern I think it was number 49 or number 50, and it was Hal Jordan, the Parallax with all the rings on his
rings,
fingers. And I was hooked on Green Lantern. That was my guy, and I'm gonna stay calm, but they haven't given me a good Green Lantern. Hopefully. This Guy Gardner with Nathan Fillion, which is great casting. I hope they will try to do that.
Yeah. I was lucky. I got to work on the Green Lantern Quarterly. I got to do an Alan Scott story, which was really cool too.
Okay.
Yeah, that was. And then I did Justice League World Without Grown-Ups. Who the heck did I do that with? It was McKenna, but I can't remember who was writing it. But that introduced the Young Justice. Or is that what they were? Young Justice?
Something like that. Yeah. Young Justice. Yeah.
What's the kids that?
Titans.
Young Justice.
There's Titans. Young Justice.
No, Titans was around way before.
Yeah, I think it is Young Justice.
Yeah.
I mean, how many kids are you going to put in harm's way?
Yeah, Robin was the boss man, right? Yeah, it was good. It was good, man. There's just maybe a handful of books I got to work on that I could say were important books, in the whole scheme of things, right? The Parallax one shot, The Final Night, where Hal gets killed, taken out the.
Oh, you did that one? Wow, nice.
With Ron Mars and McKone. Yeah, that's a big project.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then I did the X-Men Unlimited 4, where Sabretooth joins the X-Men.
Okay.
Fabian.
Okay.
And then that Young Justice stuff, World Without Grown-Ups. Yeah, it was that stuff too. And the kids were handling everything because the JLA was off doing some otherworldly stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
Get those opportunities.
I also saw some Star Wars in there, like the Old Republic. I saw one with the Purge. I mean, Star Wars is like another big nerdy itch for me. And that's another one that I've been, in my later years now, going back into the comics and looking into Star Wars. And especially like the new stuff they have going out with the High Republic, I'm gobbling right up. But, I'm going through Vader and Old Republic. All that stuff is great. And I've seen you did the Star Wars comics too, so I can't leave that untouched.
They did video games based on the Old Republic, didn't they?
I love it. Yeah, there was Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2, and then my favorite, which they still put out content for, which is the Old Republic MMO, which is one of the best Star Wars games if you're a RPG MMO fan that you can have because it's free. I subscribed once, and now I have like that premium membership to where you have more stuff in your inventory, more characters, and they've retooled it. It's about like a 12-year-old game, and they retooled all the gameplay stuff, and it's still playable to this day. To where a lot of the Old Republic stuff is still really highly big because you look at some of the novels that have been really popular are in the Old Republic with Darth Bane and Darth Revan, and I listened to all those too. So
it was a big deal to get invited to do those books. Dave Ross had a relationship already, and Dave and I worked on Alpha Flight together and West Coast Avenger stuff. Okay. So when he got to pick his inker, he said, "I want Mark," and I went over. It was I had never worked on that stuff before. It was Dark Horse at the time, of course. That stuff was beautiful, I mean, I was so proud to be part of it. The coloring was top notch. I got invited to be part of the Acme Art Show at the Star Wars Celebration 6 back in 2012.
Wow.
Invited me to participate and be one of the 23 artists that were submitted artwork, and had to get George Lucas's rights, had to be approved by George Lucas. We had first rights of refusal to buy artwork at fair market value because he's got billions of dollars. Exactly.
Did you peel off a good slice for yourself? I mean, like or is it like
You got to.
He didn't.
bottom?
He didn't do the artwork that year, but I
Okay.
Laura Martin colored, and I ended up giving her. No, Kevin Basic did the original drawing, and then I because I was the connector for Star
Okay.
Wars, hire people. I sold. They did 200 of them, 200 to 200 at $35 each. Before I even got to the celebration that year, they sold about 50. So I was already $1,500 richer before I even got to the show, and I sold over 100 of them. So it was like the most money I ever made at a Comic-Con at that point.
Okay. Wow. That's nice.
And I disappeared. Oh, somebody.
He's there. Just technical things every once in a while that happens.
Every once in a while during a longer podcast, technical snafus do pop up. I've noticed it on my end
There you
too.
go.
Anyhow, yeah, but that's the great part of it. I also found out that Star Wars pages don't always sell to comic book guys. Anthony Snyder, who's he's an art dealer, said it's hard to sell Darth Vader pages to Spider-Man guys. It was difficult.
Two different things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
One's
Beautiful
a little bit more murdery.
a little bit more murdery.
Yeah, a little bit more murdery. A little bit more. A smidge.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're beautiful depending on who's the real artist on them. I love it. I mean, a page with Darth Vader or any of the main kind of characters. I mean, I'd put it up on my wall and almost make a shrine. I mean, it's beautiful work. There's some really. I mean, the only thing I can think of right now is Stuart Immelman. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name. His stuff that he was doing not too long, a couple years back. It's just gorgeous. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. So.
Yeah, the stuff I worked on with Dave. Dave actually, George Freeman. Do you remember that name?
I remember that name. Yes, can't remember where, but I do remember it.
Jack of Hearts miniseries from Marvel back in the '80s, I think.
Yeah. High school. That's early '80s.
Yeah, he laid that stuff out, and then Dave took it to full, and I inked it.
Right.
And that was some great stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And if you that universe, just you can't take it away from me, I
Right.
the blood of the Empire. You go to Star Wars website, and people are work, and you're sitting there going, "Oh, this is where it gets uncomfortable if somebody doesn't like what you're doing,"
Yeah.
Bullshit back then,
Star Wars nerds are not the most forgiving. I mean, traditionally, they shit on everything that comes out. They didn't like the prequels. They didn't like the sequels. They don't like what Filoni's doing. Like, Star Wars nerds will criticize you at every chance they can.
Yeah.
I try to follow
the
light
work.
side.
The work to me is absolutely gorgeous. It's just a lot of the artists. They're absolutely it's beautiful work. So.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
well,
I didn't know that they did not sell as well. Otherwise, I'd go over and I'm going to go possibly snatch a few pieces myself, because if they're not selling, I mean, I'll buy it.
Yeah, I have none left. I had a beautiful splash page of Vader running a lightsaber to a Jedi, and I don't think I got $150 for it. And real world, if that was Spider-Man as full splash, it's now it's a $500 or $700 page or something.
Oh yeah,
minimum.
Back then, I'm talking 2012. I know now. I just sold my art collection, guys.
You told me about that. You were thinking about it some years ago. I think it was. I mentioned first met and spoke to you in like Harrisburg. That was pre-COVID, or just when COVID was on its way out, or something.
Yeah.
Years ago. Yeah. And you were telling me you're like looking to get rid of your collection. I go,
what it was all the stuff I had traded for over the years, and I had Zek and Beatty Captain America pages, splash page, credit page,
sure,
Judge Dredd page from Judge Child Quest.
Wow.
I had Bissett and Toddlebin splash page with Swamp Thing. $62,000.
Collectively, that's what you got for them, all of them?
And yeah,
That's a nice chunk of change, man.
That is nice.
8% out of me too. So I don't know if that was the before or after, but 62 grand. And I didn't miss it either, because I had in a portfolio. I'd look at it every year, put it back in the portfolio, and pull it later.
Right.
I don't have it anymore. And money's, in my retirement account. So
Sure. I mean, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Wow.
The only thing I have left, other than I have maybe a dozen or so of my own pages, but I have a couple of Kyle Baker Web of Spider-Man pages that
wow,
penciled in ink, and I think all of this. I think I have 4 of them.
Okay.
And they told me at Heritage that they're easily $1,200 to $1,500 pages. So,
Wow.
I might let him.
I don't remember him doing a whole lot of work, but I just remember anything he did. They just kind of ate it up. Is super sketchy and really has a nice look to his work. I mean, I don't know why. It's not really like a full drawn like anatomy or something like that, but it's just the flow, the attitude, and the emotion that comes across a lot louder. That, I mean, I just look at that stuff and go, wow, that's really beautiful work. So
he doesn't necessarily have to do great anatomy when he's doing all these very figuratively fancy things.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I mean, that's why I kind of enjoyed it. I forget which books it were that he did specifically, but I remember when they just put Kyle Baker, and I go, wow, I gotta get one. So
Wally was one of his graphic novels. Men Are From Jupiter, Women Are From Venus was one of his, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But he also was doing Transformers back when I started, which is
I think he was inking. Was he inking, or was he doing the whole thing?
I don't remember, but he never ruled. He was freehand. I'm like, how do you do that? It was crazy.
Yeah, that's. Some people have that kind of control. It wasn't me. I had to if I got like anything that was not, if anything God made, you don't have to use a ruler except the moon and maybe the moon. But anything that man made, I was told you get a ruler. So that was a little rule of thumb for me. Kind of like remember that, Frank? I said, gotcha.
Well, that checks out because very seldomly do you see 90-degree angles in nature.
But it's not a law. I mean, there's some people who do not, and then there's some people who use a ruler with everything. To me, I mean, it becomes very stiff, but nonetheless, it's done, and you move on. But I was always like, texture, values, transitions, bang, bang, bang in your head, Frank. Make sure you do it. That was me. It still is.
Well, when I worked with Leighton, he was ruling everything. Fireman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I freehanded a car outside of a car, and he got in trouble with it. With Jim Owsley was the editor at the time on Spider-Man.
Okay.
I thought I was good enough to freehand the outside of a car, and I wasn't. I was, still doing backgrounds.
Right.
And he caught shit for it. And then
really?
Yeah. And then he never came over to me and said to me, listen, you got to up your. The assistant editor came over to me and said, Leighton just threw you under the bus. Yeah. I was like, what does that mean? And then he didn't work with him anymore. He just decided he wasn't going to help me, improve me. He was just going to say, all right, I'm done, and moved along. So he still sees me at shows and talks to me like I like the guy. I turn my back and walk away from him.
I know so many people like that in the automotive
Owsley
industry.
Or Leighton?
Oh, Leighton. I know.
Okay.
Owsley. He was calling it like he didn't know it was me.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow.
He just threw you under the bus, by the way.
It was a thing. Just playing your assistant, so it's
there's always a Game of Thrones. Man, this has been a great podcast, and we have plenty on our end. I'm just so happy to have you on. It has been an amazing podcast and truly one for the records. I can't wait to edit this goddamn podcast because it's been such a blast. And I mean, anytime you have anything you want to talk about, you got a podcast. My soapbox is your soapbox. It's pretty much the basis and the mantra we have here on Padrangers and Wall Hangers is we want the people to hunt you.
So I'm sorry, say it again.
Our whole goal here is for people to hunt you and what you do.
I appreciate the time. I feel like I just touched on some of the stories. There's a lot more there. We'll do it again. And we'll go into other stuff.
We know there are.
And episodic tales with Mark McKenna sounds great because we've just scratched the surface here, gang. And this is the perfect place to wrap everything up because I love to end off this podcast with the same bit of music I paid for all these so many years ago, which is... Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Tales of the Hunted podcast. I am your host, Matthew Bucarell, the Mat Man. In the box, we have Frank One Punch Percy and the great and powerful Mark McKenna, gang. So happy to have him on. We want you guys to go back, find all your back catalog of comics that you have of this man. Go find him at a Comic-Con and have him sign it and say thank you for your service because this man is the reason why we have the Marvel and DC legends that we have is because of great comic book artists who put their time in the trenches, gang. And that's one big thing we want to highlight here. And until next time, gang, we love you. We miss you. We want to see you then. Until then, game on, boys and girls. Bye-bye.
Bye.